freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gaiman, and this is your round 4 recap episode for this week's Arnold Palmer Invitational. And joining me to break it all down, Greg DeChambeau is here. What up, Greg?
I'm glad that Mark is here today because we haven't had a chance to speak, and I finally have paid. So Mark, I know that we're now even. I paid you for your win with it was Bezuidenhout and Wiesberger, and you won the matchup. I've learned my lesson. 1, you never go against the matchup king, Mark Immelman, and 2, the longer you wait to pay your bets, the higher the interest rate goes. So I sent Mark some wine this weekend, which was nice. Nice that he got it.
That's right. 2 bottles. That's principal and interest for Mr. Mark Immelman. So Greg is off the hook. We can stop poking him for the wine wager that took him a while to pay, but he did pay it. And that right there is Mark Immelman also joining us this evening. Mark, good to see you.
You know what? Thanks, Rick. Good to be with you guys. Greg, it was like the perfect timing because this is one of my favorite events. And to sit there and watch them come down the stretch and watch the white knuckle stuff going on there with those narrow fairways and the heavy rough and the glassy looking greens, that glass of Prisoner tasted heavenly. So, man, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And rounding out the foursome here is Kyle Porter. KP, your takes on Bay Hill as a challenge, as a tournament stop this week.
It's awesome. I mean, we were just talking about this before we came on. I can't believe we get to freaking do this every week. This is it's been so much fun, and we'll talk about Bay Hill probably more later on. But I thought it was great. It was fast. It was firm. The wind picked up a little. You've got people were kind of getting on like every par 3 is the same length. Like there's no variety, but it also means you have to hit these long irons into them, which we never see. We never see the long iron stuff on the tour. So I don't know, man. I think we almost always get a good tournament there, and we got another one this year.
We have this habit of just talking golf, just getting into it before we get hot. And then we're like 7 minutes in and we're like, you know what? We should just go live. Like we should just start this. This is the podcast right here because Greg, we were talking about how, the difficulty of Bay Hill can kind of lead to sometimes some very exciting finishes. And other times you wonder what you're going to be left with if it's not Bryson at the top, if he's not battling it out with Lee Westwood and all the cast of characters that we saw this week.
My feeling when courses get really hard like this, and again, it's not so hard where it's fair, but it's extremely challenging. There was, nobody shot better than 71 today, it's hard to imagine on the PGA Tour on a par 72 golf course, nobody's better than 2 under. That doesn't happen very often. So I understand what you guys are saying, at least if nothing else in the terms of uniqueness, right? It's it's a very rare opportunity we get to see that. But at the same time, last year, Hatton made on his second 9, 8 pars and 1 double bogey, and that's it. There was no birdies. He made 1 double on 11, which led to a famous Kyle Porter gif from just last week, and also a double bogey, and then he won. And I just kind of felt like this week, very early on today, and last year with Hatton, I knew who was going to win for a majority of the 9 holes. Whereas
really?
I think I feel like I knew Bryson was going to win. I mean, I was writing a show for tomorrow. I bet you Kyle was writing his articles on Bryson at 3:30 this afternoon, right? Because you just have a set. You kind of know. And when you go to the RBC Heritage, like we had last year, just the first one that pops into my head, because it's the opposite scenario. You didn't even know Webb Simpson's in the mix. And all of a sudden he makes 5 birdies coming down the stretch and he wins and it's over. So I wonder what's more exciting. For me, personally, I like to see birdies.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but I think that Bay Hill does a good job of identifying who's playing best. I think sometimes with some of these tour stops, I don't know if RBC Heritage is a great example, but even like with something like Rocket Mortgage, which Bryson coincidentally won, it can a little bit turn into a putting contest, which is, I guess, more fun. But I don't know that it identifies like who's hitting the ball best, which I love. Like that's the thing that I love. So I don't know. I thought Bay Hill. I think Bay Hill's kind of underrated. I think it's really good as a tournament course.
I don't know about you, Mark, but I did not know who was going to win this golf tournament, and I was not giving it to Bryson DeChambeau, especially with 17 and 18 lurking. 18 was by far the most difficult course on the hole. 17 was playing a half shot over, so I knew that there was an opportunity for a big number coming in, and we'll talk a lot about Bryson, but I thought there was a lot of drama in this one.
Yeah, it was, and to Kyle's observation, you had to do everything well, and you had to have a pretty good handle on your emotions. And because the one thing about Bay Hill that I just love, it comes at you from the word go. There's no soft welcome with this opening hole. It's a dogleg left of like 450 or so out of bounds down the left. Played 459 today. And so it beats you up from the start. Then you have a bit of a respite through the middle of the round. And then from 15 that par 4 was the 5th hardest hole today. 16 is always the easiest, like a short par. It's a short par 5, like a long par 4 for these guys. Then 17 was the 3rd hardest hole, and 18 was the hardest hole, playing almost a stroke over par. And for an event like this, now it's sad for me that a certain, I wouldn't say luster is off the event, but because of the scheduling, you don't have all of the glitterati come and play. But for this event, winning at Arnold's Place, the King's Place, you saw the emotion when Bryson spoke about it. So winning at Arnold's Place, donning that cardigan, the 3-year exemption, it's one of those that if you get your name on that honor roll over there, it's a big deal. And you have to earn it coming in. And there's no freebies. I mean, you even saw there on 16, Bryson could have probably hit 2 iron and 7 iron into the green and made a 4, but he went with driver and he didn't make the birdie. And Westwood, same thing. He's got a wedge in there, just whiffs it just ever so slightly. Chips one up there, heck of a chip, I got to tell you. And he's got 6-7 feet, which he couldn't convert. So you've got to do work coming in there, and you've got to play until the final shot is holed. And that's just what I loved about this, because, yeah, you've got Westwood chasing. And Bryson is obviously the guy that should win, given the rankings and given the arsenal of weapons he's got and all the rest of it. But Westwood just didn't go away despite, 1 or 2 little mistakes. Then he hangs around there, makes a good save there in the backside. I can't remember which hole. But par 17, then he drives it down the heart of 18 fairway into a divot and hits one of the shots of the day over there. And then misreads that putt, but that's easy to do because there's a lot more slope there than you think. And then when he made that putt, I'm like, this is legitimate. And this is a guy who's battled with his putting throughout his career. If he had putted just anywhere decent, he'd have multiple majors, in my opinion. So this thing went down to the wire. So from that point of view, because of the makeup of the golf course, the way the holes stack up, the way you have to earn it, and the fact that par is a good score. I mean, when you're standing there on 18T, driving that fairway is a big deal. And then hitting on the green is a big deal. And then getting it in the hole is a bigger deal. So it's asking all the questions, and I love it.
Speaking of par being a good score, our champion, Bryson DeChambeau, parred his final 12 holes of the day on Sunday to shoot a 1 under 71. As Greg mentioned earlier, only 3 rounds under par on Sunday. The course played 3.5 strokes over par, and KP, Bryson's done it again, and now with victories at Bay Hill in these conditions, at Winged Foot in similar conditions. The biggest thing about his game right now to me is not necessarily the distance off the tee, which is amazing. It's when he gets in that thick stuff, he is able to move the ball in a way that his peers are not able to move the ball. And you're seeing it on these narrow fairway, very thick, rough courses. And that to me is where his biggest edge lies.
It's a great point, and something that we talked about that in relation to him being able to hit like sand wedge or pitching wedge because he's so far up, but not in terms of like how quickly or how much speed he has coming through the rough, and how like other guys don't have that. And it just mitigates the fact that there's even rough, right? It's almost like it's not there. I mean, that's not, it is still there, but his speed just really like takes a lot of that risk out, and it allows him to do what he does better than anybody in the world, which is hit driver anywhere. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the whole point with Bryson is, and I thought 6 was very kind of instructive on this. The whole point with Bryson is that he is the best driver in the world when he's hitting it well, I think. Or at least he's able to gain the most strokes because he's so much farther than everybody else. And that allows him to not have to be perfect in every other area. It gives him breathing room in all of these other areas. Does he still have to chip it well? For sure. Does he still have to putt it well? For sure. But he doesn't have to be, you know, and I've said this before, he doesn't have to be multiple standard deviations better than his baseline. He just has to be a little bit better than his baseline, right? And he contends, you know. So, you know, he gained 12 strokes on the field this week. 7 of those were with driver. So he was okay elsewhere. He was okay. He was good. He was good with his irons. He was good with his putter, but he wasn't lights out for the week. He wasn't, you know, like that much better than the field with his irons. And it just is, he gained 2 strokes on 6 on Saturday and Sunday. 2 strokes, like 2 whole strokes on the field. That's insane. That's a sixth of his like what he did for the week on that hole alone. And I just, it's unbelievable. And it's, you know, he's the content king. He's the content machine.
I want to take this beyond the numbers a little bit. And I normally do this sort of stuff, but the one thing that DeChambeau does, first off, all of these guys work very hard, but he just takes it to a different level. And we can all agree on that one. And I saw footage of him, and someone told a caddy friend of mine told me about this. He was leaving the place, and it was in the dark Saturday night, and Bryson was on the putting green in the lights, ironing out some putting wrinkles he'd had from the day before. Well, that turns into him being second on the greens today. And I think what goes unwritten is that apparently Bryson's figured out exactly where his ranges are. And when he goes and works on something, it's not like he's searching. He knows what the recipe is. He goes and addresses it. It might be in the middle of the night. We've seen him do this at Wingfoot. We've seen him do this over in France. Now, Saturday night, you're in Orlando. He has figured his recipe out. And if it's power off the tee, great. He's sort of let the cat out of the bag that he's going to identify the wedges as the next place where he can mine a stroke or 2 or whatever it might be. But when he goes onto the green and goes and does some work, and that turns into a fantastic putting day because it was a huge change and it was difficult to putt those greens today, just the way they were rolling. They were fast, they were slick, and they had that fright factor to them. I mean, that to me is so impressive because a lot of folks, when it's not there, you go there with your instructor, and I'm sure Greg can talk to this. You pitch the feelings at the instructor and you pitch the ideas at the guy or the girl, whoever it is, and they start to make some educated, don't want to say guesses, but sometimes guesses. And so then you hopefully find something, a feel you can take to the following day. Bryson knows what he's got to do. People just go there, he works on it, he gets it dialed in, next day's right as rain. And to me, this is something that is, it makes my head turn. It really does.
So you guys keep bringing up points that just bring up so many great conversations. So I'll try to keep this simple. First, Mark, what you just said about his work ethic reminds me of a Jerry Rice quote, which is, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't." And today was that day where Bryson could do things that others couldn't do because yesterday he did the work that nobody else would do. So I love that aspect. I love the work ethic that he puts in, and it allows him the option to do what he did on number 6 today. It allows him that option to gain those strokes on one hole, right? And he put the work in for that. But here's the thing about number 6. Rick and I talked about this Friday, which is why we were, I think, both half wrong on that. We said, I don't think he's really going to do it.
We were
right?
technically correct, Greg, which is the best way of being correct.
Okay. So he didn't quite go for it, but he did do something that we talked about, and he did it with scientific reason. I was amazed by this. He said in an interview on Wednesday or Thursday, if I have 195 ball speed, I can get there no problem. And you kind of look like you're kind of rolling your eyes when he says it. You're kind of laughing like, okay, if you can hit that ball speed, whatever. And he goes out on Saturday and he gets 194 ball speed. And then he goes out on Sunday and gets 196 ball speed. So he's right. He goes into that. He makes that decision because the work that he put in on the range, he knows, okay, I got 195 today. I have 195 today. So if the wind is right, which took him a while to figure out, if the wind is right, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And it played to his advantage because it gave him a great angle. The fact that he hit it off, that he missed the green doesn't matter. But there's a reason for that decision.
I want to ask you guys a question, right? The drives down 6 were fantastic. You know, if you had asked me this 5 years ago when I stood there on that tee, and we were fortunate to have that northerly blowing, the rest of the course plays hard, but 6 plays easier. With the prevailing wind this time of the year, it gets into you off of your right hand side, and that tee shot is just nasty. They pepper the right side of that thing in the bunker over there. So here's my question: the drive on 6 or the par putt on 11? Which was the most telling if you had to pick a shot as we go towards the victory of Bryson DeChambeau today?
Most telling?
Or the most, if you could say that shot was instrumental in him winning, where would you go?
Probably 11. Probably 11. Because I think that it kept he just parred home after 6, right? And it kept that run together. I think that 6 is the more important thing long term because it's repeatable. You can't make 50 footers, right? Like make one out of 80 or 6, I don't know, whatever the number is.
It's 2%.
Right. So it's not as the point with the driving stuff is like it's repeatable. Like that's just who he is. And the putting, he putted great on Sunday. I mean, he was. I think he picked up 2.5 strokes or 2. I don't know, somewhere around there, which he needed. If he's a 0 putter on Sunday, Lee Westwood wins, right? So I thought the putt on 11 was more important for today, but the drive on 6 is like the reason that we're even talking about Bryson winning 8 times on the PGA Tour and like what's going to happen going forward.
I think you're right on that, Kyle. And just to add to it a little bit, the putt is what makes the difference for today. It's what makes the difference. Putting makes the difference the smaller the term gets. Every hole, the outcome of every single hole, every individual hole comes down to a putt, whether you make or miss a putt. But as the term gets broader, and as Kyle says, the distance is repeatable. You rarely go to a golf course with a significantly reduced club head speed. You pretty much have that within a certain range, day in and day out. The weather's going to have a little impact, but it's a minor difference, and that's why you see Bryson gain strokes in all of the, which Rick could speak to in much more detail than I. But he gains strokes every time he tees it up off the tee. He walks to the first tee with that advantage built in every day. And when he makes putts like he did today on 4 and 11, that's what allows him to win rather than just top 5.
And all he's done, I mean, we talked about this around the US Open, but what he's done is just shifted his percentages, right? He's shifted them from because of the driver, because it's so repeatable and so dependable and so consistent, he shifted from like, okay, I'm going to win 3% of the time to I'm going to win maybe 6% of the time, right? And he's given himself the opportunity to be able to have a 50-footer mean that he wins a tournament instead of have a 50-footer mean that he finishes, T7 or whatever. And I mean, the other, I could go for like an hour on Bryson. He's kind of a closer. I was looking up, so Data Golf has this great. It has this great tool where you can look at what guys shot when they entered the final round in any position. So I was looking up where he's been at when he enters the final round. I think it was in the top 5, and his strokes gained in the final round was like an average of 2.3, which is really good for like being up there near the top. And you compare that to like a Finau who is at around 1 or a Spieth who I think is around 1 or 1.5. He's really turned into, and I think this is why you said this earlier, Greg. He's really turned into somebody when he's in the lead on Sunday. You're like, this is over. Like I believe that Bryson is going to win this tournament because we have all this built up history of him doing so, and I think that's kind of impressive. I don't know. I don't know that we think about him in those terms, but I think it's true.
We could do a 10-part mini-series on Bryson DeChambeau, but Mark, I'm going to let you get the final word in here. His 8th victory on the PGA Tour. He's won thrice in his last 15 starts worldwide. Is this rate sustainable? I mean, what does the future look like for Bryson DeChambeau?
I personally, all of you guys make very, very sound comments. I feel like as I've watched him play a few times now, you put him on a US Open style setup and he is going to thrive. He's a good driver of the golf ball. And the point you make, Rick, about hitting quality, being able to advance the ball given distances and at elevation too, because just moving the ball 150 yards out of the rough or moving it 150 and high so it can come down on a sharper angle of descent, that's a big deal on firm greens. So those two weapons he has, to me, harkens back to a young Jack Nicklaus, who was the ultimate US Open player. And so I feel like Bryson in those type setups is, I don't want to say unbeatable, because no one's unbeatable, but he certainly will have the advantage. But then you got situations too where, if you've got spinny greens or if you've got more receptive greens and stuff, then it's a different examination entirely. But if it's hard, fast, with heavy rough and some wind, because he judges wind as good as anyone, that's the one thing that no one ever talks about. That guy doesn't miss yardage control very much. You give him those conditions and he should be the favorite in those sorts of tournaments.
I think real quick, what's interesting about that is that he's a very, we would call him like a super modern, almost futuristic player in what he's doing. But what Mark just described is built for like an old school course, like a US Open from 1980, right? Or an Open Championship even from 40 years ago. Like I think that part is it. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to play great at Winged Foot. I didn't expect him to be able to be really good at a place like Bay Hill. So he's almost this futuristic type player built for courses of or setups and conditions and courses of yesteryear.
Isn't that why he wears that hat?
Oh God,
that's exactly why.
He had Hogan's hat. He had Arnold Palmer's cardigan. I'm like, what are we doing?
The hat is a nod to Payne Stewart, who went to SMU before him. So there's a little honor that he's showing. The guy's got a lot of class about him. He does and says the right things. I mean, I was sad about the hot mic event he had there on 11, because that'll stick with him for a little while. Especially when you speak so glowingly about Palmer. But I saw a picture of him, to your point, Kyle, where Lucas Wald, who's a golf instructor I highly, highly respect, he had got 3 pictures: Bryson from this week, Arnold Palmer, and Jack Nicklaus as young men, and paused them at the top of the swing and compared and contrast them, and they were identical as to what these dudes look like at the top. And so in a funny sort of a way, here's a throwback, and he's using, it seems scientific with all the stuff they're using, but some of the levers he's using is the same stuff that Nicklaus and Arnold and these guys did to hit the ball so far just by figuring it out back in the day.
I was supposed to move on. That fried egg that he had on 11, where 11. He then said, "These are the worst bunkers on tour." Kyle, that goes to our conversation last night about whether he's likable or not, and he is very likable when things go his way, and it switches the second something goes wrong.
Well, and like he's almost Noah Up was tweeting about this, about how everything's so awkward. Like even when he gets interviewed afterwards, and he's like, "Well, I just want to thank Cobra," and he just goes down the list, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, is this a bit? Like, is this a parody, or what's going on here? So yeah, we might need to erase the tapes on that Saturday pod, Rick.
Speaking of fulfilling sponsorship obligations, here we go. First cut list is Paramount Plus has just launched, and you've probably seen the Mount Journey, the Mount Paramount spots featuring, of course, our newest champion on the PGA Tour, Bryson DeChambeau, James Corden, Patrick Stewart, Beavis, and Butthead. Yes, quite a squad. Paramount Plus is live sports, it's breaking news, and a mountain of entertainment. You can go straight from game day to movie night with Paramount Plus. Stream iconic movies like The Godfather, Indiana Jones, and Mission Impossible, as well as new episodes of critically acclaimed original series like Star Trek Picard, The Good Fight, and The Stand. Get this. It's where you can dive into live sports from us, CBS Sports, including the NFL, March Madness, the Masters, and Champions League Soccer. Plus, stream hit shows from CBS, Nickelodeon, MTV, BET, Smithsonian Channel, and Comedy Central. It's live sports, it's breaking news, and a mountain of entertainment. Paramount Plus is streaming now. Greg Ducharme. Lee Westwood finishes second here. We were talking before we went hot. So, I mean, he hung in there all day. He shoots a final round 73. He's going to finish one shot back of Bryson DeChambeau. He did what he needed to do, in my opinion. He gained 2.5 strokes on approach. He had a little ice in the veins putt on 18 to at least make Bryson have to make the putt to win the golf tournament. Gets a little bit unlucky with his lie in a divot on 18, which we can talk about. That's a silly rule in my opinion. But Lee Westwood Westwood, good to see him back in contention once again.
Well, yes, he played great, and I'm up on Lee this year, right? I was saying earlier, I think this was
right.
a couple of months back now, that he was kind of my long shot for the Open Championship, which is the hardest tournament to pick this far in advance, so it's crazy. But anyway, he's hitting the ball great and has been for the whole year. He won in Europe on the European Tour. He's been in great form, so it's no surprise. I'm surprised at how long he lasted. He stayed in the mix for, the whole tournament. He had a putt. He's awaiting a putt, a make or miss putt from Bryson to go to a playoff or not. He's 47 years old, competing with the longest player in the history of the PGA Tour. Seriously,
It's true.
Okay, I got to ask you this now, because you guys have done a nice job of convincing me that ball strikers are going to win events, because you say this all the time. How can you make that statement, Greg, when Lee Westwood has perennially been one of the flushest ball strikers ever to walk our planet? And I'm surprised he hung around for so long.
Well, eventually these guys kind of fall apart in some way or another. Everybody did. It's no discredit to him. It just simply surprised me. I thought there were a couple of putts early in the round that he made that I didn't expect him to make. The one on 6 was phenomenal. The one on, I believe it was 11, I think he made another one on 12. He made some really nice putts that he has a tendency, and has shown us in the past, that he misses. Now, he hits the ball extremely flush, as you said, which is why he's here this week. This is a perfect, in hindsight, this is a perfect tournament for him, right? This is, as Rick and I talked about, Team No Putt does great here because the greens are a little flatter, and guys that don't putt very well in general putt a little bit better here. And that's why you see the leaderboard that you saw, with Jordan Spieth being an exception. So guys who hit the ball really well and struggle with putting can have a better chance here. But eventually you have to make some putts. And Lee Westwood stayed in it because he was pretty good on the short ones. Missed a couple late, 14 and 16, he missed some putts that would have been huge if he had gotten one of those to fall. But it was really impressive.
Westy actually was better than Bryson from tee to green on Sunday. Yeah.
And for the week, he was first tee to green for the week.
Yeah. So he was better on Sunday, better for the week. I think that, so here's my Westy take. I think that I hope this sort of late, I don't know, it's not a resurgence. He's been playing pretty well. I hope that as he plays into his 47, 48, 49, 50, that it brings some appreciation like for his career. His career has been unbelievable. Like he's been awesome for a long time, and he got overshadowed and rightfully so in a lot of ways by Phil, by Ernie Els, by so many other guys in that generation. But he got asked about Gary Koch, who he played with at Bay Hill, whatever, in his first Arnold Palmer Invitational. And you're like, man, this guy that's on the broadcast, that's been on the broadcast for a long time, they played together in a PGA Tour event, and I realized it was a long time ago, but I just think I thought this week, and I hope the next few years shine a light really on how great Westwood has been over the course of his career.
44, I'll set you up on this, Mark. 44 wins worldwide for Lee Westwood. He's the first player to hold a 54-hole lead on the PGA Tour in 4 different decades. That is the longevity that we're talking about with Lee Westwood. And it was, I want to get your takes on Westwood's performance this week, Mark, in general, but I just hate to see a guy pipe one down, 18, one shot back, the hardest hole on the course, lands in a divot, and he's got to play it out of there. Drives me crazy.
Well, if you just watch the comportment first off, but I also want to add to the mix there. You reference Ernie and company. He had to face off against Colin Montgomery week in and week out on the European Tour. And Monty was a banshee over there. I mean, he won multiple times, won that Order of Merit 7 times in a row. I mean, that's unheard of. That's Tiger-esque. Anyway, but to Westwood, at 47, he's 47 years young in a funny sort of a way. And you watch him as he goes around with Helen, his fiance, on the bag there. He's standing there calculating yardages in the fairway. She's just standing by the bag. He's checking wind. He's actually thumbing through the yardage book, going back to previous holes where to see where a club went a certain distance. And this is stuff that you normally get this information fired at you from your caddy. So here's a 47-year-old Westwood playing like a teenager, really, again, who's doing everything but carry his own golf bag. And you can just see there's a certain freedom that he's playing the game with. His golf swing hasn't changed, but the putting stroke looks way more fluid to me. And then when he gets that ball in 18, I was watching his reaction closely. And the boy didn't bat an eyelid. I mean, it was like all in a day's work. And he got up there and delivered a strike. I mean, that thing was just pure. And I look at this, I'm like, 47? Whatever, man. This guy is evergreen. And if he finds the right circumstances, hey, there's a place called Augusta National that he feels pretty comfortable at. If he's rolling
wins there.
Now,
That'd be sweet.
I just want him to get just his one major, because he's Hall of Fame bound. If he gets a major, he's guaranteed in there, and he deserves it because he's that good.
Better golfer, Westwood or Sergio? Not better career, because Sergio's career is more accomplished, but better golfer.
More talented Garcia, I'd say that.
Yeah, I'd probably lean towards Garcia too.
That might have been a bad question.
If you're asking for better golfer, then I'm going to go look at the results for you. You know, it's hard to argue with a record book. You know, if I've been fortunate to go into people's houses and there's like the mantle is decorated with big trophies and major championship stuff, and you can say, well, he's better than you. They're like, yeah, well, I've got these. What are you going to do? No?
Yeah, you're not talking about the position that you're in at the top versus him. Yeah, well, look at P4 for my swing versus his. That doesn't come into what the results are ultimately decide that. But Rick, you brought up the divot now a couple of times, and I want to get into that a little bit.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Because I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, if you're Lee Westwood, and this is a perfect segue, how great of a ball striker, how much of a flusher he is. If you're Lee Westwood and your ball's sitting in that sand-filled divot right there, it's a non-factor, nearly a non-fact. Maybe you put a little thought into it because it looks different, but it's not even below the surface. And I don't think he's even worried about it. I think he plays a normal club, a normal shot, and just says, okay, I have to be a little more precise here, but I'm not precise anyway. For the normal viewer, listener, whoever's watching here, if you're hitting the ground before the ball, then a divot becomes a really big deal. If you're striking the ball first, this becomes a fairway bunker shot without any of the real concerns of a fairway bunker. The concerns in a fairway bunker are the lip. You have no lip to deal with. And your footwork, maintaining your balance in the bunker is another concern. And you're standing on the fairway. So this is like it's like a nothing. To me, it's as a wise man once said, a nothing burger.
Hey, Greg. Good call there, because you're right. When guys are as good as this, they deal with divots, balls and divots. Have you ever stood in 18 fairway at Bay Hill and took a look at that green? Have you?
Yeah, of course I have.
You have? Okay. Well,
I've played it. And look, it's daunting, but the divot doesn't make the difference there. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, my goodness. You can stand there with a perfect lie in the fairway, and it can be like, you get the shrink factor going on.
It could be on a tee.
No, it's legit. And out of a divot from there, that was top quality.
Real quick. So my only thing with the divot thing is, like, if we're going to play preferred, Jacob was talking about this, producer Jacob in the chat. If we're going to play preferred lies because it might rain in round 3, then the consistent thing would be to not play out of divots. Like, I say just don't do the preferred lie. Like, just play it where it lies always. Like, that would be the side that I lean toward. But that's a very inconsistent thing. Like, if we're playing preferred lies in round 3 because it might rain, maybe, then be able to drop out of divots. That's crazy.
Yes. The only concern that the rules officials have with rain and fairways that are hard like that, any rain and those balls pick up mud right away. And if they start hearing from players with mud balls,
great.
Mud ball.
So yes.
But you
want content?
Think about that think about that happening at a major championship, right? Like, it's just goofy. Like, it's just like, I don't know. I just think it's dumb.
The argument is not, did it impact Lee Westwood, because he's very good at golf and he probably doesn't care, but it's the fact that you split the middle of the fairway, and just because another play, it would be like if you weren't required to fix your ball marks on the green, right? You just left them there. So when you get there in the final group and you've got to putt around 6 or 7 of these en route to the cup, but hey, you just got here later, so I guess you're SOL.
Yeah, but you can tap those down with the new rules from the USGA thing.
So you should be able to roll your ball out of the divot.
That's the
2 inches.
That's the point.
You know what? I've always been on one side of this argument. I'm like, a divot's a divot. You've got to go and play out of it. It's part of the skill.
Which
It's part of the skill of the thing. Now, the one thing, a mud ball, there's no skill necessary. There's no skill that can help you from a mud ball. It is pure fortune.
But
Now,
they're
when
both
you-
but they're both happen. They're both happenstance. Like, your ball happens to roll into a divot, your ball happens to get mud on it, right? And I just, like, you say the players will get mad. I don't care if the players get mad. Like, that's part of the deal.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I understand what Mark's saying about the mud ball having limit. You know, it limits the skill to some degree, but I tend to lean towards the same place you do, Kyle, where you play it down. Play it down. And if everybody's dealing with bad conditions and unfair, quote unquote, unfair elements and, happenstance situations that happen, you play it down. And that's where I see.
Green, right? Yeah, that's
rub of the green. That's right.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with a ball in a divot. Never, ever.
The good news for me is I haven't either, because I just move it right on out of there. I got no problem doing that. I've never hit a ball out of a fairway divot in my entire life, and I do not intend to start anytime soon. Jordan Spieth has been officially declared back by the only man that I think has the right to do that, and we have him here right here on the First Cut Pod. It's Kyle Porter. KP, it was a 3 over 75 en route to a T4, but I don't think you care about that. I think that you were saying he is back no matter what he does here on Sunday.
Yep. Don't care about whether he won or not. The mayor of Spieth Island has declared a holiday on Monday because we're going to be up late tonight partying, and Phil's bringing wine. There's going to be, Kuchar's going to do that hula dance from the PGA Tour commercial that we've seen a billion times. It's going to be awesome.
You're going to get balloons that say T4 on it?
Two different balloons. 1 T, 1 4.
I can get him from Jason Day after he blows him up to stretch his rib cage out.
Oh my God.
My thing with Spieth is so super impressive that he did it at Bay Hill. We all sat here on Tuesday and we're like, okay, like, yeah, he's hitting it good, but Bay Hill's, it's different. He doesn't play well at a place like TPC Sawgrass with water. We kind of all thought that about Bay Hill, and he just managed the driver around there. I mean, it wasn't pretty. It never is. But my thing with Spieth on him being back, the putter has been way better than it normally is over the last month. So I don't know that you're going to get like the sort of consistent contention that he's had over the last 4 events, but his iron play is, I keep saying it, 13 out of his last 16 events now, he's gained strokes on his approach shots. And that's his whole shtick. Like, that's his whole deal. And that's why it's not one tournament. It's not 2 tournaments. It's not one type of course. It's not two. It's a variety of places over the course of a month at a in a bunch of different situations. And so I don't know how you can look at it and not have optimism about how the rest of 2021 is going to go.
The most impressive thing to me, or at least the thing that I wish I could quantify with a spreadsheet or a formula or a calculation, Greg, is like the magic. Like, he's got the magic, right? Him and Grell are having fun again. They're out there doing it. Someone, I wish I knew who it was on Twitter, said it's like when Steph Curry hits his first 3. And then he hits his second 3, and you just see it go through the hoop, and you're in trouble if you're playing against Steph Curry and he's hit his first 2. Spieth has that. Like, when he starts rolling, he had that save on, like, when did we talk? Friday? Was it Friday night or Saturday night where, like, on 18, he just has that magic that only he can summon in these big situations.
It is so fun to watch, and that's why he is the guy who defies the stats. right? You talk about all those things that you guys talked about on Tuesday. I wasn't there Tuesday with you, but I would have been right there on the same page as you, where we're talking about a guy who's not in control of the driver, and for that reason, it doesn't suit him well, but he is the guy who defies stats. It's a guy like Jordan Spieth. Patrick Reed also comes to mind, where they know how to score. He can go out there and shoot 29 for 9 holes from the trees every time. You just get that sense that he just knows how to make birdies and eagles, and he knows how to get the best out of every round that he has. I do think Kyle said he managed the driver around, and I think that's important because I declared him back a couple of weeks ago before. I jumped on the bandwagon a lot sooner than I normally would because he stopped missing that shot way to the right, where he blew it to the right, and he was missing left. And we talked about it at Waste Management, where there's some positives here because he's missing it all one way, and that allows you to avoid penalty areas. It allows you to avoid penalty shots because you know the water's on the left on 11. So I'm either going to club down or I'm going to aim at the bunkers, and I'm going to take the water completely out of play. And Jordan's been able to do that. So he's limited penalty strokes, he's limited double bogeys, and he still has the ability to make a 35-footer, to make a hole-in-one, to light a spark that gets him in contention.
I forgot
We just
about
haven't
that.
seen it on Sunday yet. Oh, right, yeah, he did make a hole-in-one on Saturday. Yeah,
I think that was an unauthorized declaration by you, Greg.
It is. I know. I'm not the founder of Spieth Island. I don't even have any property there. I'm not in the club, but I said
should he be the Masters favorite?
No.
no.
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. We don't know anymore.
I know. It is hard to tell. No, it's exciting. Like I was talking to a buddy at church this morning. I was like, man, why him? He's so nondescript. He's so like, he's I don't know. He's just a dude out there, but it's so enthralling. And he goes, well, he plays a round of golf like my life with kids is right now. This is a dad. That's one of my friends. He goes, I mean, it's like the highs are really high and the lows are really low with all these kids running around. I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Like he's a very, as much as somebody who's sponsored by Coca-Cola and AT&T and Under Armour and makes $50 million a year can be, he's very relatable, I think, at least in terms of just the way he plays golf.
Hey, you should
Well, he's an open book.
Huh?
Do
What about Jordan? You got the wrong J. You were talking about at church now, Kyle. Come on.
Well, there was other stuff. We were leaving. We were on our way out.
WWJD
You were
is
whispering
what
this
would-
during the past.
Yeah.
What would Jordan do?
If I might, I watched all of Saturday and I was out of breath watching him play, man. I can see why he and Michael Greller are out of breath because it feels you're on the edge of hysteria all of the time. And he was doing some fantastic things. And, that Jordan thing that he used to do where he'd hit it all over the joint and then make a 40-footer or hole a bunker shot. He was doing that sort of stuff again. And I'm like, all right, this is how he's always played. And so we can't critique him for that because even when he was winning, this stuff was going his way. But here's where I just want to pump the brakes a little bit. Look, he's what he was a few months ago and what he is now, they are poles removed from each other. But playing the final 3 holes in 4 under when you have a chance to post, not so much. And all of those were indiscretions on greens. He'd got himself into trouble where old Jordan Spieth, when he won, would have found a way to rattle those things in, scrape a birdie out there, the final 3 holes, post something, and then wait. The US Open comes to mind on those wiggly greens they had over there in Chambers Bay. But yeah, he's got perfect greens, misses 3 short putts, bogeys 3 of the last 4 holes. There's still a little going to go, but he's a long ways back, and he's thoroughly entertaining.
And I have a feeling we are going to spend quite some time talking about him in the next few weeks. He's always on our outline. I got to go quick here because we got to get some stuff on the other side. But Rory McIlroy, the headline this week, KP, ejected and dejected. He shoots a 72, 76 on the weekend. He falls to T10, and he gave this quote after. I don't have the question, but he says, Yeah, I feel okay. There were some good parts this week. Again, some stuff that I'm sort of, I don't know what the word is or how to describe it, but just a little dejected, or I don't know, like maybe looking to go in a different direction. I don't know. I need something. I need a spark. I need something, and I just don't seem to have it. Some days it's good. Some days it's not.
Sounds like he needs a counseling session.
Something.
Sounds like a caddy or coach is about to be fired.
Bingo.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's had his coach for like 25 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, but I've seen Pete Cowan trolling around the place. Rory is, if you watch him on the range, he's always talking to guys about technique and looking at clubs and stuff like that. He's talked to me before. He's changed golf balls often for spin rates and stuff like that. But this sounds like the axe is going to be taken to something here pretty soon.
Yeah, maybe. I would be surprised if he fired Michael Bannon or Harry Diamond. But this is a little bit of what I was referencing before the week started. It's like, I mean, we're talking about it like he missed the cut by 8. He finished T10.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's there's just something missing. I mean, and I'm just essentially repeating what he said, but he does. It's like this, and we talked about this, Rick, on Saturday when he played so poorly. I mean, I think he lost 6 strokes to the field in round 3, playing in like the third to last group, and then he lost 2 more on Sunday, and it's just so like uninspiring. It's the driver's still there, except when he hits it in the water twice on 6. But just the iron play was so bad on Saturday. It was just like it was like egregiously bad. It wasn't like he missed us. It was like he was flying greens by 20 yards, and I don't know. It does feel less. And maybe this is always true of Rory. It feels less mechanical or technical than like philosophical, than like a general like direction that his. I hate to say make this too broad, but that like his life is going in. And I don't know that there's not an answer that you and I can give for something like that, but that's the feeling that I get when I watch him, when I hear him, when I kind of take in all this stuff.
And I think that is really interesting. And Greg, we'll kick this to you first, and then Mark, you can put a bow on this. It has been a terrible stretch of golf, Greg, for Rory McIlroy. And just look at his last 20 results. That would be a career that all but 10 guys on the PGA Tour would love to have. And we say this is pretty much a failure of 14 months for Rory.
Yeah, well, you're not measured to your results. Your results are measured differently for everybody because of what your expectation is, and you put the expectation on yourself. So Rory is not living up to his own abilities, and he knows that, and that's why he said what he said. So Rory, to me right now, he's not rolling up his sleeves. He's not getting dirty. Everything for Rory has to go perfect, and if it doesn't go perfect, it goes bad. And if he misses a 7-foot putt, it goes bad. If he hits a tee shot into the water, it goes bad. He hits it in the water again. And then he starts to perform when it doesn't mean anything. We've seen that before too. So if it's not, there's something about a guy like Jordan Spieth that is he's in the dirt and it's dirty. And if it doesn't go right, he figures out how to get it done anyway. And he forces his will. And for Rory right now, I don't see that. I see a guy that if it's I think to the RBC Canadian Open, every putt's going in, every tee shot is just the way that he wants. The approach shots are and he shoots 61, and it's great. He can do that. But if he misses a 5-footer on number 3, then he's going to shoot 75. And that variance is way too big for his talent. I think he's just got to figure out a way to grit his teeth a little bit more when it comes down to it, and shoot a score. Figure out how to shoot a score rather than figure out how to play a certain style. That's what I see.
Final word on Rory, Mark?
Well, given that I had sort of professed that Rory was going to win this event earlier this week, I appreciate the fact that you'd given me the take. And what Greg says, I think, is highly appropriate, because what I saw last week, it looked to me like he was cobbling together a score without his best stuff. And at Bay Hill, you've got to bring some game, and I know he drives the ball well, and he looked all the parts in round 1. And round 2, when he put together that round where he didn't really have his best stuff, he had changed putters, was rolling the ball pretty well, sort of salvaging, sort of blue collar type golf. I was like, yeah, wait a second, it's happening now. And then on the weekend, I don't want to say that it's like he wants it too much, because that's all too broad, and I think that's a lazy description. But it almost looks to me like he's trying to force the issue a little bit. Like there was an interaction there on Saturday when Bryson drove this thing over the water on 6, and he was just in front of McIlroy. And the on-course reporter goes, "Oh, well, Rory asked Harry Diamond where that ball ended." And the next thing, Rory took almost the same line and hit it like 361, which was just 14 behind Bryson, a little off to the right. And I'm like, Rory, this is not a flex contest, bro. You can put this thing in the fairway, hit it on the green, make a birdie, which he did. And then yet today, I mean, we hit how many balls in the water over there? That's asinine. And so I almost want to say that it's like when things aren't going the way, then he's trying to push the button as opposed to letting the rounds come to him. Because the one thing that I know for certain through all of my years in golf is that eventually cream will rise to the top. But if your biggest enemy and your biggest enemy becomes yourself, then that cream will never, ever have the time to rise to the top, because you're hitting some silly shots. And 2 balls in the water on 6, the way he drives it, no, man, I can't be going there. And so to me, it's like the issue is trying to be forced too much as opposed to allowing the round to come to him. So,
well, the field next week is nothing but cream. It's the Players' Championship. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go through our odds and ends. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Players Championship Week, TPC Sawgrass. 48 of the best 50 players in the world are going to be in attendance. Kyle, the only 2 that we're not seeing in action, Matthew Wolff, he opted out of this event. We've known that for a couple days, but we got word that Brooks Koepka tweaked his knee like Sunday as the leaders get to the turn. This little nugget comes out that Brooks Koepka has withdrawn from next week's Players Championship.
Yeah, they started showing featured groups, and he was in one, and then an hour later he withdrew. That was weird. Which one, real quick, Rick, which one's more concerning to you, Wolff or Koepka?
So not Wolff, because I know he had the hand thing that he withdrew at Torrey. I knew he had some bad blisters, and I thought I read that he had kind of tweaked his back. That's not as concerning. The Brooks stuff, if I remember correctly, everything that he had previously was left knee, and I think this was right knee, right? Which is a new injury.
That's correct. I actually think the Wolff stuff is a little more concerning, because I talked to somebody about this, and I think Wolff just like doesn't want to play golf right now, which I don't know that is crazy unusual for some, like he's 21, 22. You're getting just it's so much adjustment. It's such a different world. And when it goes poorly, it can feel like the weight of the world is on you. You've got all these sponsors. You're not used to that life, that whole thing. I think that's hard to get through. And if there are injuries compounding it, I think that's difficult as well. The Koepka thing, I think I don't know. This one's hard because I don't think it's as concerning because it's not the left knee, and the left knee, obviously being a righty, that's problematic because there's so much force on it. The right knee is like, okay, this is either a one-off thing or it's just a trend of injuries where he's just going to be injured through his 30s, and that could be the case. I don't think it will be. I hope it's not. It stinks though. We're coming up on a huge stretch here, and you want Koepka to be involved, and now who knows?
You know about the knee, which is concerning to me about Brooks, is that, typically with athletes and with all human beings really, when one side of the body gets injured, the other side of the body starts to accommodate. Mm-hmm. So you get some of that, and then you're doing that at high speed, and you're doing it a lot. I don't know the severity of this injury. The first I found of it was on the television broadcast this afternoon. But what's concerning to me about knees and ankles, I hate a wrist injury for a golfer because of the force you put on the wrist when you strike the ground at their speed. But knees and ankles, man, these guys walk, 6 to 8 miles a day? And yeah, you can talk about the force put on the golf swing. If you're struggling to walk, and that's the one thing where I'm remiss at the fact that I was just talking about the left knee and the force onto it and stuff. And when I talked to him, he's like, I was fine when I was swinging. It's walking down hills that was the challenge. And all of these big-time golf courses that they play, the hill is ripped. You're uphill, downhill, and stuff like that. And if you're struggling to walk, that's a real deal. So I'm concerned about the Brooks thing right now.
Yeah.
TPC Sawgrass, Greg, will play host as it has every year since 1982. It is an iconic Pete Dye design. And of course, the hole that we're going to see, and apparently we're going to see every shot next week, the hole that everybody's going to want to be posted up at, the 17th Peninsula Green.
It's a unique, probably the most recognizable hole on tour. I would say it's maybe exclude Amen Corner.
That's
maybe.
real.
I was gonna say that doesn't count. That's 3. It has to be the most recognizable hole on in golf. It has to be.
Yeah, I think so. So it's going to be very interesting to see. You mentioned every year since 1982, but this is only the second year with it being played in March, and I think it was played in March up until 2006. And then it went to May, and it was in May from 2006 to 2018. It was 2006 or 2007. So it is kind of a little bit of a different test. It's a little slower. It's asking for, I think the course tends to play a little longer. But as fast as Bay Hill played this week, I can't wait to see what the golf course is like. I don't know what the weather's going to be quite yet. But man, I'm looking forward to it because I have a feeling it's going to be a little faster than it was in 19.
17's overrated, I think. 16 and 18 are awesome.
See, 17 to me allows you to have that. There's that birdie double opportunity, right? Where what we saw at Bay Hill was kind of a par bogey opportunity, maybe some doubles too. But realistically, as safe as you play, you end up making pars, or you end up making like the best shot you hit leaves you with a 20-foot birdie putt. At Sawgrass, the best shot you hit could be, and you could make it on 18. You could hit it to a foot, which I think, because it's a wedge, I think that's great. Yet at the same time, you get the wrong trajectory, the wrong spin, judge the wind wrong, and you could make a triple. So I like that up and down aspect.
You know what? I've talked to a few players about this, and all I can speak to is my experience. And for the last 5-6 years, whatever, I've done feature groups over there. And that closing stretch of holes from like 13 through 18 are just dynamites.
It's awesome.
Good par 3, 14's a mean par 4, 15, 16's you want to get, and then 18 is, of course, just a brute. But I got to tell you, man, you stand there on 17. Now, I'm keen to see what it's like this year, because in years past when I've been there, it's this amphitheater with these buildings that are 3 stories high, folks going bananas there the whole day, and it's just one big party. And you could see it on the players' faces when they leave 16 green. They're looking over there already. And me with a microphone in my hand, dude, I walk down 16 fairway and I'm looking to my right to see where the wind is. You're looking at all the flags and stuff. And so that hole is in your mind from early in the round. And you can see the players, because I stand there on the tee and you watch their reactions. It is, even though it's just 130 yards or something, it gets inside of their heads so quickly. So from that point of view, it is just a fantastic hole. When I first got there, I hated it, but I think it's tremendous. And just like at Bay Hill, you earn your Players' Championship if you get through that stretch of 3 holes, the gauntlet.
I've heard that the walk from 16 to 17 is about 50 yards too long.
I've heard that too.
You guys have heard that.
Where did you hear that?
Okay. I just made it up right here on the spot. What is that? Rory in that commercial? Is it Rory who says that?
I love the end of the Rory commercials. Like, I'd be missing something if I didn't have a Players' Championship. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, you'd be missing something if you didn't have a Canadian Open. You'd be missing something if you didn't have an Omega Dubai Desert Classic. I mean,
and you are missing something. It's a green jacket. So hopefully we can shoot that commercial later. Odds and ends. Let's do our one and done update, because there's not much of an update here. So here we go. So starting from the bottom, Coach missed the cut. Patrick Reed, he stays at 1.9 million. Producer Jacob got T10 money from Matthew Fitzpatrick, 195,000. That moves him to 2.6. Kyle, you and I are still stuck in the middle. We both took Paul Casey. Everyone either got top 10 money, T10 money, or $0. So KP, you and I both burn Paul Casey. We get 195,000. We make up no ground on anyone. Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, I don't mind that. I still like the pick at the beginning of the week. I'm just glad that the generosity and grace from producer Jacob to give me a pick back after I donated my $400K to charity was very kind. I appreciated that.
And your alternate Robert Gamez shot a 92 on Friday, so you didn't have to take.
I forgot about
that. Greg, you are still in second, 4.8 million. Francesco Molinari missed the cut. Goose egg.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. No further comment. And Mark, you stay at the top. You actually extend your lead over Greg by another 195,000 because you also had Matthew Fitzpatrick. You were at 5.3 million, and I was trying to do the math to figure out how many events were left. If Coach would have to win them all to catch you before the Masters, I think you're pretty clear of that at this point.
Yeah, I'm liking the position there. Pity I didn't put something on it, but again, kudos to Greg for sending 2 bottles of wine because of the last deal. And as far as this one and done thing goes, I feel like I actually escaped something because Paul Casey was a good pick last week. And if I manage to get out with a tie with you guys, I've got him in the holster now for Valspar, which is a big deal. So you can rest assured I'll be using him then.
Mark's got him penciled in for Valspar week, our super contest update. So this is our betting card for each week. I had a pretty good week. I won every single matchup and then lost the things that I sprinkled on, which was Sungjae Im to win, Jordan Spieth to miss the cut. That went really well. But this is the formula. KP, if we say, if Colin Morikawa can be a 0 putter, he's going to win a lot of golf tournaments. If I win all my matchups every week and lose on the things I sprinkled on, I'm going to have a great turnout by the end of the year. That's the formula.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
But it was you, Kyle Porter, who is the big winner of the week, and you were thrust into that position by Bryson DeChambeau, who you not only had to finish inside the top 10, but you also had a Bryson Hovland double chance at 6-1. That's either of them winning, which is, I think, the first time that any of us have hit a double chance. And then you capped it all off with a best bet victory of Paul Casey over Sungjae Im. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was excited about Bryson this week. I mean, we talked about it on Tuesday, but him and Rory at Bay Hill are just, they just kill there. I mean, their top 10 rate, their threat to win is, it's very high. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I'd like to thank all my sponsors, Link Soul, and that's really it. Now Gene, I guess. So yeah, it's been a good week.
Well, after this week, you might get some more sponsors. That's what you got to do.
If I could ask you guys to help me for this week, please help me find where the matchups are because I never found them and I got drilled last week. I need to change. I need to change something drastic. I'm not sure what it is, technical or mental or emotional, but something's got to change, guys.
You gotta get in the strokes gain game.
Yeah, all right. Cool.
No, we just need to send him the link to where he picked all nationality bets because he didn't know where to look.
Those are so
we'll
hard,
be sure to
Mark.
send that.
Those are impossible.
I've got my brain tied behind my back having to play against you guys. I mean, come on.
I will
He's
say,
the
Mark,
matchup king, too. Mark should just pick matchups.
Yeah.
Should have been doing that all year.
Sure.
you did get Christian Bezuidenhout as your top South African. So you did not, I don't know if you won any other ones, but you definitely won that one.
No, I didn't win any others because Matt Fitzpatrick fell in a hole on Saturday somewhere, and he was going along pretty nicely. And I can't remember what the others were, but they were desperate. So we'll put this behind us, and we'll change something for next week.
We'll send you the link, and we'll get you back on track. Gentlemen, Arnold Palmer Invitational in the books. Closing thoughts. Anybody? Last call.
Bryson driving right now is like Manny Ramirez step and played at Fenway. Must see TV, theatrics, power, skill. It's awesome. I love it.
It's pretty good. I think we'll end on that. I like it. Producer Jacob, thank you very much. Behind the scenes, that's Kyle Porter. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Porter CBS. That's Greg DuCharme, who you can follow on Twitter at The Real GFD. That's Mark Immelman, who you can find on Twitter at Mark_Immelman. You can follow me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.